So I'm going to talk about the spectrum of what is going on in the world. There are various views of the spectrum. Some people think that the world's going to end in 3 years. Some people think that we just need to bring down civilization and everything will be fine. So I'm just going to go through some of the various views that I've been reading about and trying to figure out what I think is going on, and I also want to know what you think is going on. So we've got this big spectrum, and I'll just go through some of the people that I've been reading and listening to and talk about where they stand on the spectrum. I mean, there's all these different views. Some of them you wouldn't give an exact point on the spectrum. But anyway, we got Terence McKenna, who's this psychedelic philosopher, and he basically thinks that he has this time wave zero theory that I don't think is very accurate, but he thinks that the main possible way that we could save everyone, or that people's views would change fast enough to make a sustainable way of living, is to do psychedelics, because that would just change people's worldview very fast. And I think that's kind of valid, but I also think you need to use a lot of caution with psychedelics. And then we got Derek Jensen, who thinks that we need to bring down civilization as soon as possible, or else it's just going to kill the entire planet, and there's not really any higher force happening or phase of evolution. It's just that we built civilization, it was stupid as hell to do, and now it's killing everything, and we need to stop it. So I'm going to post a link to Derek Jensen talking about that. I'll also post a link of Terence McKenna. Then we've got this guy Rama, who I'll also post a video for, who's this Indian kind of guru guy who's basically saying, oh, the planet is perfectly fine, everything's completely fine, everything's going fine, you just need to meditate and do all this stuff and you'll be fine. And I can't help but think that that's just bullshit, because millions and millions of people are dying every day and starving and just horrible suffering, and the planet is being destroyed every single second. Deforestation is happening non-stop, and overfishing is happening non-stop. Like, the planet is not fine. And then we've got Daniel Pinchbeck, who writes this awesome book called 2012, which I'm basically done reading. I definitely recommend checking it out. He goes through all these different perspectives on what people think is going to happen in 2012 and around 2012, and basically his theory is that we're emerging into a new state of consciousness on planet Earth, essentially humans, and that through this new state of consciousness we will bring about a sustainable way of living and a new paradigm of everything. And I think there's some validity to that, except that I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know if somehow it's some like higher force or whatever affecting us, making us evolve our consciousness, or if it's just the internet is helping evolve our consciousness. I know that it seemed to help me do that, or what's happening, but he thinks that he goes through all these different perspectives, and he's very analytical and skeptical, which is good, because I mean, a lot of this new age stuff is just bullshit, and he's a really awesome writer. I definitely recommend checking that out. And then this other book, Ascent of Humanity by Charles Eisenstein, which I just read. It's a phenomenal book. He again analyzes different theories. He spent 10 years writing this book. It's a phenomenal book. I don't have it with me right now, but I'll post a link for the website. He gives it, the whole book, free online. I mean, it's a long book, but he basically thinks that all of this civilization that we built was basically an inevitability, and that it's bound to collapse pretty soon, but after that and before that we can start this new paradigm of sustainability and just living within nature and not against it. and all that. And so just some analyses of these different views. I mean, Derek Jensen, I was reading for a long time, pretty much most of his books, and I mean, I thought he was right on a lot of stuff, and I still think he is. Like, we can't sustain industrial civilization for very long at all. It's bound to, we're just going to run out of resources. And so the Western perspective, like the basic status quo, is that we'll just go green and everything will be fine, and technology will save us. We'll have solar powered everything, and like it's just gonna be cool as hell. But I think that all three of those books I just mentioned basically debunk that theory. But I mean, some criticisms of Derek Jensen, he does seem to bring about negativity. Like, I feel depressed and that I'm just wasting my time doing whatever I'm doing if I'm not doing the most intense thing. And like, I want to help people change their minds, but it's hard to do that. Like, no one's gonna listen to you if you just go up and say, we need to bring down civilization. Like, I have a friend who does that and no one really listens to him. So, but I have gotten a lot of people to read Ishmael and some other books by just being reasonable and talking to them. So, I mean, I just want to see what your guys' views are on that kind of stuff. I mean, some people also think 2012 is just the end of the world, like an asteroid's going to kill everything on Earth. So that's another spectrum, another location on the spectrum. I don't really think that's going to happen. I think that there could be a bunch of natural disasters, like for instance Haiti. The earthquake was likely caused by climate change, which I'll post a link to show that climate change can cause earthquakes. And I mean, it could just mean that civilization gets destroyed by natural disasters, and then we have to figure out how to live tribally, which I think would be pretty cool. But a lot of bad stuff would happen for that to happen, but that may need to happen. I mean, whatever. But I mean, some say that the best thing that I can do to help out the whatever is happening is just to focus on myself and try and get myself as most enlightened as possible, which I think there's some merit to. I think that it's important to get yourself in order before trying to help other people, but I don't think that that's the only way to do it. And in part 2 of What We Leave Behind by Derek Jensen, which is this book right here, which is really awesome. I do recommend it, but again, it's just his perspective. He talks about magical thinking, which is that like, oh, if I meditate, it's gonna stop, makes dams disappear and shit like that, which obviously it couldn't do, but he just gives his analyses, especially in part 2 of What We Leave Behind, which is really good. And I mean, I think a fair amount of the New Age books have truth to them, like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle really helped me out in a lot of ways, but at the same time I think it can make people too passive and too abstracted from what's actually happening. So I think we need to find a balance between that. And I think that some people just think that it's a phase in our evolution that we have to go through, and that like everything is perfectly governed by some higher power. So that's another location on the spectrum, and then there's varying, some people think some of this, some people think some of that. So what do you think? I want to know what other people think, because I'm just trying to figure this out and figure out what I should do best. So my 3 recommendations are definitely What We Leave Behind by Derek Jensen, 2012, The Return of Quetzalcoatl by Daniel Pinchbeck, and Ascent of Humanity by Charles Eisenstein. Those are all awesome books. So please respond, leave a comment about what you think is going on and why. Thank you.